Are you familiar with the song 10-9-8, God is great? How about Remember the Lord? If Christian children's music is not your thing, I wonder if you've ever attended the Tamworth Country Music Festival. Collin Buchanan's been taking the stage, writing and singing songs about Australia and his faith for the last 30 years. Along the way, he's been recognised a number of times at Tamworth Country Music Festival for his songwriting. He's also inspired many people in the Christian faith, not only to learn scripture through song, but also to develop a deeper understanding of their own Christian faith. Welcome, Collin Buchanan. Great to have you on the show again.
Lovely to be with you.
Yeah, and to share with you. I'd like to start the conversation by talking about your most recent album, well, that Calvary Road, and what it really is all about. Because I found it interesting. I've listened to it. I've listened to you in concert. Tell me what it's all about. Because it's different than anything else you've done before, isn't it?
Yeah, well, creatively, it was a collision between my country music, which you've described, and my Christian music. Because I'd been writing songs over the years that had some of the patina of my country music, but with my faith sort of integrated into that. So songs about people I'd met or been impressed by, stories of faith in the bush as well, and reflections as well. There's a sort of philosophical, I suppose, way of expressing the faith, which I think I've found as I've sat with my guitar in front of audiences who aren't necessarily Christians and broached matters of faith, belief, matters of God, that songs are a very disarming means.
It's a little bit like an autobiography, really, isn't it? In the sense that you talk about the people that you've met on your way that have influenced you and their experiences. Is there anything particular out of all the people you've met and all the experiences that stands out as being the most important?
It's interesting. That's an interesting question, because I have met so many people, and it's interesting to think, well, who springs to mind? And there is a song on Calvary Road called "The Old Bloke," which people have thought is about my dad. It's not. It's about a fellow called Currajong, who I wrote a song about and put a song on one of my country albums, my second country album, back in 1994, I think it was. And we were friends with Bill, who was a Korean War veteran and who came to visit his daughter, quite a bit of a shattered man from that experience, struggled with alcohol and was just a bit of a lonely soul, a wanderer. And he came out to visit his daughter at the Christian community where we were living as well. He'd some years before we got there. And he just found his way into, he was good on the tools, and they gave him a caravan, and he sort of settled in, and that was the beginning of him not just finding a home physically, but also a spiritual home. And he came to faith over time, and he's just a picture of someone who, when we're put back together, we're a little like the vase that got knocked over. It can look like that, and glued back together and hope that Mum doesn't notice. The elements of his life that were broken were still frail, but he had a hope that really transformed him, and a special man.
The ABC programme has been very much a part of your life, as has, of course, Play School. Tell me a bit about both those things very briefly.
Well, Play School was a great opportunity. Actually, my mum mentioned the other day, and she's 89. She said, "Oh, Colin always wanted to be on Play School," which I don't remember saying, but I did think this would be a great thing to do. And I loved the discipline of it, the opportunity, the imagination, the heritage of Play School, the relationship with children, and the worst kept secret, I suppose, in life is that children grow up. And I was stopped at like the APRA Awards, one of the composers, this is at the Songwriting Awards in Australia, and he said, I'm now a composer, but I just want to say thank you for Play School. It really meant a lot to me as a child, and that's quite a powerful, and I know that's the part that Play School has played amongst kids and families, and you carry the positive experiences of your childhood right through your life.
And the other programme is very different, isn't it, really? It's
Which one's that?
This is the ABC. Thank goodness it's Friday.
Yeah.
You know, it's many people listen to on the car going home and listen to.
That's an interesting opportunity. Richard Glover, who's the host of Drive Time Radio on ABC, had interviewed me some years back, actually, for a Good Weekend article in the Sydney Morning Herald, a feature article, and And we encountered each other at the level of my faith, and he was always quite intrigued by it, and questioned that, and really enjoyed his time travelling with us on the road. And he hosts this program. It's a satirical take on the week's events, so it's an interesting place to find myself, because I'm there to sort of be funny, and it's a little like you just got to tread around things, but I do find bringing I guess a sanctified sense of humour, just to be myself as I am.
And he acknowledges and lets you be the Christian in that place.
Yeah, I really respect that in Richard, which I think is a really great quality that he has.
That song I want you to sing in a moment that we're going to listen to, Outside the Camp. Briefly, what that's about.
I like to say when I'm performing that song, to introduce it, if you expected God to turn up, where would you think he'd turn up? And you'd say, well, surely it would be in the palaces at the top of the hill, at the top of the heap, with the most views and the most likes and the most friends. And God did turn up, and he turned up in a stable as a humble, frail child, and then he walked a life of goodness and meekness, true meekness, and strength and truth, and then ultimately stepped outside the camp, out into onto the fringes, and that was not only an example to us, but the means of providing a way that we could have peace with God. So, outside the camp is a picture of frailty, but also of hope.
Have you ever found yourself in a place where you've had to compromise your faith?
Well, I guess the whole call to obedience, by implication, says there's always two ways, aren't there? There's always two roads to take. And I know what I found in my faith, what Jesus has given me, is a treasure that I really, it has no comparison. So when those decisions come, I think, well, I know where the treasure is. And I think that there's a great reward in integrity, but there's a great reward in serving Christ and knowing that He's the audience of one, really, for us. And to know that you're found, that you're the lost sheep, you're the lost coin. That's the treasure that you take into any parts of life.